You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. Well, this has certainly been another startling week. Of all the many possible outrages that took place, so many horrors, so little time, I think the one that swims to the top and waves its arms helplessly about is the announcement by he who shall not be named, who seems to be in control of our country, that the USA intended to take over Gaza, forcibly remove almost 2 million Palestinians and put them God only knows where, and nobody wants to receive them, and develop the land and shorefront into a Riviera. You know, Disneyland comes to Gaza. Once a shady developer, always a shady developer. Never mind human rights, land rights, law, both national and international, and other such pesky things. There will be, mindless in Gaza, annexing that area for our own purposes, and at our own will, and at our own time, along with, ideally, annexing Greenland, Panama, and, oh yes, of course, Canada. This goes beyond our wildest fears and approaches the surreality of Nero fiddling while everything burned. But for the moment, while these goodies molder in our court systems, or what used to be our court systems, today we're going to talk about women surviving imprisonment. It's timely, you know, because prison might be where we're all en route to anyway. But also because today my special guest, Marci Marie Simmons, is here to guide us through her own incredible decade of surviving in a Texas prison, and her emergence as a powerful and indefatigable activist on behalf of incarcerated women. We'll get to her in just a minute after this, our first break. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
A survivor of 10 years in a Texas prison, Marci dedicates her voice to educating people about the realities of incarceration for women, especially those challenges faced by women in prison. Leveraging her extensive experience and platform as a social media influencer with almost 300,000 followers on TikTok and as co-host of On the Rec Yard, Women's Prison Podcast, she passionately advocates for criminal justice reform. Her work focuses on driving systemic change, empowering marginalized communities, and using digital platforms to inspire action for social justice. She is the Director of Community Engagement for Lioness Justice Impacted Women's Alliance, a nonprofit organization founded and led by currently and formerly incarcerated girls and women. Here is Marci Marie Simmons. Marci Marie, welcome to Women's Media Center Live. Good to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation.
Oh, I'm excited to have this conversation. Listen, I've had many people on this program, and I have had famous people, and Jimmy Carter once did the program, and Jane Fonda does it all the time, and stuff like that. But I have never, and I am awed by you, I have never had on this program a survivor of 10 years in the Texas corrective system. Uh, I, I am agog. I am in awe. You are amazing. And to come through strong and whole and positive and doing work for women is incalculable. Bravo and thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for those kind words for sure. And definitely my incarceration shaped or fueled my passion for this work. So.
Wow, must have set you on fire. Tell me about it. Tell me how you came to be a lioness.
Yes, thank you for that. So I am the Director of Community Engagement for
Yes.
Lioness Justice Impacted Women's Alliance. And how that came to fruition for me is post-incarceration, I started kind of exploring social media a little bit, and I started posting about my prison experience, and I realized that lots of folks just didn't really know a lot about the carceral system in our country, and then especially in Texas. And as that interest started to grow, I realized I could kind of use that momentum for change. And I started contacting advocates here in my state to see how we could collaborate and what I could do. And I met the executive director and co-founder of Lioness, Jennifer Toone, and we put our heads together with several other formerly incarcerated women, and we put our feet to the pavement and got to work.
Wow. And what did that require? I mean, Texas is, yeah, Texas. You are on the front lines of the front lines. In a sense, it's easy to be an activist in New York City. But and it hasn't always been, and I haven't always been in New York City either. But still, it ain't Texas. And there's a kind of, oh my God, I don't know what to call it. Paralysis? No, but awe. Awe is the only word I can think of for people who are active organizers in the prison system. My God, and women in Texas. It's Texas where where they still think that women should be giving birth to triplets each woman. I mean, so you started to organize, and what did that entail?
Well, we came together and we started writing the women and gender expansive folks, basically folks that were housed in women's prisons and jails that we had left behind.
Yeah.
And we included them in the organizing. We knew our own lived experiences, but we needed like boots on the ground in the middle of the fire type information.
Yes.
And so we started collaborating and letting the inside members, which now has grown to about 500 incarcerated women that are part of our organization.
Wow.
We just let them lead our priorities. And so they're
That's
working
brilliant.
hard on the inside, gathering data, sharing experiences, and we're taking that data and we're trying to change policies and laws and public perception.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Wow. Jesus, this is amazing. And you're doing that through political pressure, through um, demonstrations, through organizing, through writing letters, and through contact as well? Or is there even more?
Yeah, all of that and social media campaigns, community events, making ourselves present anywhere where they're talking about our population, which is formerly and currently incarcerated women, girls, gender expansive folks. We're there.
Wow.
And we're in several bipartisan coalitions, and we're just making sure that our voices are heard and our lived experiences are used as a catalyst for change and not just exploitive storytelling.
Do you feel that they are? I mean, you feel you're making a dent, a difference. How do you feel the reaction is?
Yeah, we are absolutely making waves here in our red state. We're able to really what we have noticed. Well, first of all, I'll say that last legislative session, we were successful in getting legislation passed regarding women's health and women's rights that are incarcerated regarding medical transport.
Ah,
Kind of the things that they were having to endure.
uh-huh.
So that was a huge win. But what we have noticed is because I think that our tenacity and there's power in numbers. We're a very large organization. We
Uh-huh.
really feel like, as formerly incarcerated women, we really feel like this is truly our organization.
Oh.
And
Mm.
I apologize. Yeah.
No,
Yeah, we really
don't
feel like this
apologize. I'm just
is.
I'm tearing up on this end. I mean, because it's so refreshing, because I mean, I'm old now. And I've been at this a long time as an organizer, and I'm so tired of meetings with well-meaning other white women who organize the entire situation, all done, finished, and then turn around and say, "Oh, we need some fill in the blank, women of color, um, disabled women, older women, etc., etc." And I'm so tired of that. And the whole concept that you are incarcerated women and formerly incarcerated women to begin with from the get-go is magic, and that makes all the difference. So I congratulate
Yes, thank you for that. And I think that really taking ownership in our work and being able to have that passion, it's our experiences, and I think that that has brought a level of uh, awareness. Like, for example, when we're pushing for legislative or policy changes, oftentimes we see the agency, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, make changes in their policy,
you.
uh,
Really?
basically to shut us up,
Oh,
and we'll take it. We count that as a win.
oh, I see. Because because it means they're hearing you at least.
Right. Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely they're hearing us. Most definitely they know who we are. And I think that in the beginning, just a few years ago, we were mistaken for maybe a girls' club or a women's group. And they were sorely mistaken. We're a
Yeah,
force to be reckoned with.
duh.
So,
I'll say. Okay, let's take a for instance. I know that there's been a huge and understandable flapdoodle about the fact that women in Texas, incarcerated women, were not being permitted out if they needed an abortion. Where do we stand on that?
yeah, we are. That is still the case.
Uh,
And of course, now that new legislation has passed banning abortion in our state, it's even obviously
yeah,
even less
hard.
likely that that would happen. What we're seeing now is women that are on parole or probation, so they are tied
Uh-huh.
to the state. They're being restricted from leaving the state for reproductive health.
Oh my
And so
God.
that is an issue, right? Right, because they're having to get permission from
Their
from the
probation
agency, from
or
the
uh-huh.
yes,
So they can
yes.
So they can't stay because they're not permitted to have an abortion, but they can't go to a state where it is legal because that's not permitted. Oh my God, Texas is really. You didn't pick the easy one, did you? You picked the real big. Oh my God. Oh my.
Right. We
Gee.
have a lot of work ahead of us for certain. It gets even kind of deeper for that population, is often women that are on probation or parole have a GPS monitoring system, an ankle
Uh,
monitor. And
uh,
so then it makes it even, now they're being tracked. So even if someone were to go around their parole officer, maybe just for a few days, or
uh,
and maybe took the chance of not getting caught, well, they're being they're quite literally being GPS monitored. So that's not an option. So we are collecting data and strategizing on how to battle that.
Mm. Well, I'm beginning to have fantasies of a march on Texas by all the women in the United States. All the women, every woman pissed off at Donald Trump, or he who shall not be named, just marches on Texas for the hell of it. I don't know.
Yes.
That's not necessarily constructive, Robin. I understand that, but Jesus, you have the patience of many saints. I understand that you met your wife while incarcerated. It came in my notes about you. And that story is particularly an example of resilience and love in the face of adversity.
Yes, thank you for that. I did meet my wife during our incarceration, and women's sexuality within the Texas prison system, there's a hyper focus
Of
on
course.
it. Um, and they very much it's against the rules to form any kind of relationship, but we are human, and so we are
Uh,
going to we are going to form relationships and friendships and pseudo families
of course.
inside.
Oh, great.
So yeah,
It's
I
crazy
met
to
my
think.
wife. We did not. We didn't live in the same dorm. We lived in different buildings within the same prison. So our relationship was a lot of note passing and getting kind of like a pen pal
Uh,
situation.
oh.
Um, so that was, she is um, not transgender, but she is mask presenting. And so
Uh-huh.
she experienced a lot more hardships
Uh-huh.
in incarceration
Yeah.
than I did. I'm a very cis presenting person.
Hmm.
Um, uh, and she did face a lot of that. And that's one of the things that our organization is advocating for change as well. So,
That's marvelous. I again, this has to do with being in my 80s and incredibly old. um, but not really, not inside. Inside, I don't know, maybe 40. But I think it does have to do that. I have come to a point where all of um, the attendant adjectives that go along with women or woman are fall away from me, and I'd see women. Um, but but I understand their importance, and I support their importance. But when you say mask defining, I think to myself, so she was another woman, and you were a woman, and you fell in love. And
yes,
and yeah, of course. And did they think you wouldn't? Are they
yes.
crazy? Are they nutheads? I mean, what is wrong with them? They are so incredibly stupid, willfully stupid.
Very much so, and there's just kind of the hyper focus on women's sexuality inside of Texas prisons. We have like an inside joke that they would rather see us fight than be intimate with one another,
Of
and they just
course,
take that as such yes, as such a serious
absolutely.
crime. Um, and the way that our clothes fit. If we were had bigger hips, and so our pants fit a little more flattering,
Oh,
than someone else, they would hyper focus on that and make us wear sizes that were two sizes too big. It just
oh,
very hyper focused on that.
yeah, yeah. I had a dear friend who was in prison for quite a long time, and I visited her frequently. And it the stupidity and the completely arbitrariness of the rules always took my breath away. And this was one of the more modern, you know, supposedly liberal prisons where they had visitation from children and they had a children's room and all this sort of crap. And it still it still was a savage system. Uh, so you freed up medical care, but not if a woman is pregnant, she can access outside medical care, uh, but not abortion, obviously.
Right. There are still a lot of, especially surrounding pregnant women. In 2019, legislation passed that banning shackling of pregnant women.
Oh, terrific.
But there's this Right. Yeah, that was a huge win. But
Jeez.
there's a loophole that the prison system uses in the name of safety, in the name of security. So
Uh,
it's still up to the officer. If an officer felt like there was some kind of immediate danger, they could still shackle a pregnant woman even during
labor.
delivery or right after delivery. So
Uh,
we're working on that. We're actually working with an organization called Restore Her.
uh-huh.
They're based in Georgia, and they passed what they call the Women's Care Act
Mm-hmm.
in Georgia, and then several states after.
Mm,
And we're working with them. They're like the top priority things in the Care Act would be it would require Texas to offer pregnancy testing within 72 hours of arrest, because a lot of times women don't even know
sure.
that they're pregnant going into the system.
Of course.
Um, and then it would have it would defer sentencing for pregnant women. So pregnant women facing charges, um, they could defer their sentencing so that they could actually go through their pregnancy and deliver in the free world.
Wow.
And then it would
Georgia?
also require Texas.
Well,
Yeah,
Georgia's yeah,
Georgia
yeah,
passed
yeah, but
that.
that's because of yeah, Georgia's been undergoing major changes lately with its senator
Yes,
and with Tracy and yeah, so Georgia, there's hope for Georgia yet. But Texas, I
there
don't know.
is, and I'm hoping that they spread. Well, they it has to start somewhere, and
That's right.
Texas is it's a tall mountain to climb, but
Well,
I
once
think
you
that we
climb
just
it,
keep breaking things away.
that's right. And once you've climbed it, I mean, once it breaks, then that's really the United States. That's that. I mean,
Yes.
in a sense, it's like when China gets feminism. It's there goes the world. It's thank the Lord. I mean, in whom I do not believe, but nonetheless, it's a handy little statement. Uh, it's a major watershed, and the sheer numbers of women involved in this case Georgia, or people in Georgia, because twice now it's come very close, and then I think when it comes in Texas, and I know other good women who are working there, but the work you're doing is really in the lion's jaws. My God. And are you in any kind of consortium with other groups other than the Georgia group? I mean, is there anything like a national network of lionesses, or how does that operate?
Yeah, so Lioness, because Texas is so big and we have so much work to do here, we're centralized on work in Texas. Now we do collaborate with a few national organizations
Mhm.
to get work done for certain, but we have some coalitions within other Texas organizations. For example, we are just finishing up a research project with the Texas Civil Rights Project, and what we did is we took data from our inside members, and we actually asked them a lot of questions about reproductive health, their own health concerns surrounding reproductive health.
Mhm.
We've gathered all of that data, and the amazing researchers at TCRP have finally been able to dissect all of that data into digestible information, and we're getting ready to publish a report on it. And we found what we as formerly incarcerated women we already knew. Women they get delayed treatment to any kind of prenatal care
Sure.
or menopausal care.
Any kind of
We know that they're
reproductive
not
related.
given.
Yeah, any
Yes,
kind of reproduction
absolutely.
related care is it's like they're trying to deny that exists in the female body. And so we just ignore
Right.
it. If we ignore it, maybe it'll go away, and we won't have to deal with it. I mean, and the female body undergoes far more changes in one lifetime than the male body does. This is ridiculous.
Yes, and it's under researched, and you're right. They just want to kind of slide that under the carpet. And then the other thing, which is what we already knew, kind of regarding reproductive health, is the lack of menstrual cycle products,
Of course.
and that we have, yeah, we have legislation passed again in 2019, saying that
Yeah.
those would be made available, and that's just that policy is not being enforced, and so we're
Wait,
working on.
okay, wait a minute, wait, halt. There are
Yeah.
or there are too few menstrual products available to women in prison in Texas, or,
Right, there are too few. There are
oh,
not
good
enough. And so,
God.
yeah, every woman is issued X amount, which is about 24 pads and about 5 tampons 1 month. And so,
Ah,
if you are someone that has a heavier cycle, or you have some reproductive issues, or
yeah,
female health issues going on, that there are women that have a cycle for 2 weeks or weeks at a time. They're not getting the proper
oh,
hygiene items.
God.
And right,
They are so
yes, it's a huge problem.
parsimonious. Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is. I remember there was a time when I was in jail briefly. It was a protest. And they demanded that I sacrifice my tampon because they wanted to give me a pad instead. And I said, "Why can't I keep my tampon?" They said, "Nope, nope, nope." And I said, "Are you afraid I will hang myself by the string?" Because it was so absurd. But of course it was not absurd to them in their world, and and that's just a, a, a protest overnight. That's not a major contesting. This is extraordinary.
But still a huge dignity issue.
Yep.
And just like you're saying, there's no logical security issue
Mm-mm.
with that.
Mm-mm.
And we go through that. The dignity issues surrounding menstrual cycles is outrageous.
Yeah, it is.
When
It is.
we get strip searched often,
Uh-huh.
like sometimes even 4 times a day, going to and from work and back and to and from lunch, you get strip searched.
Because obviously you're going to
And so it's
smuggle a spoon. I mean,
right.
my God, what is in their heads?
Right. Yeah. So Robin, if you're on your cycle and you're getting strip searched, and we were permitted tampons in Texas state prisons, you have to remove that,
Uh,
and throw it away, and then stand
well,
without any
uh,
hygiene product on. And so it's another way just to strip women
yeah,
of their dignity.
it's not about the issue at all. Whatever they claim the issue is, it's about power, isn't it? I mean, it's about
Yes.
power
Oh, for
over.
certain.
It's just about exercising power, and I have it and you don't, and that's all that it is. It's it's like rape is not about sex; it's about power. I mean, it's so much of what we're up against is patriarchal power. I mean, it's just it's in your face, and all the forms that it takes of sexism and racism and ableism. I'm sure that disabled women have a fine time in Texas prisons. It boggles the mind. Well, I'm deeply grateful to you for talking to us about this and for the work that you do, which is really just stunning. And you've been at this now. How long? How long have you been the Lioness?
I
What is it? The community engagement director.
Yes. Thank you for that. Our organization is fairly new. We're less than 3 years old,
Oh,
and we've made a lot of waves in 3 years. And
you
I'm really
sure
excited to be a
have.
part of this organization. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely have made tracks. Wow. Well, I hope we'll come back to you again and again to find out how you're doing. But your equity statement, what you actually do, and elevating the leadership of, as you put it, directly impacted individuals and empowering those women through peer support, training, and advocacy. This is invaluable because it restores their sense of dignity at the same time you're fighting for it. And I'm in awe of the work you do, and I thank you so much, you and everybody at Lioness Alliance for Justice. So thank you, and thank you for being with us on Women's Media Center Live, too, okay?
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you, and we'll check back in when we get some more legislation passed.
Yeah, so we can report the wins. Ha-ha!
Yes.
We need to take another short break here, but I will return directly and with some fighting words. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
The normalization of terror. Those are fighting words. What follows here are extracts from the chapter, The Normalization of Terror, which is a chapter in my book, The Demon Lover, The Roots of Terrorism. It came out some time ago, and it still is frighteningly apt. In it, a woman finds herself imprisoned. She doesn't know why or on what grounds or how she got there. And she's trying to make order of it and her life and the problems of existing. Now, back out there, when I was out there, believing I wasn't a captive or hostage or a refugee, I would get frantic, not knowing how to categorize information. Where do you fit the way a woman feels when her child won't stop crying because she has nothing to feed it, even though she lives in one of the richest countries in the world? Terror? Economics? Normalcy? It was items like this, when they wouldn't fit no matter how I resisted, that helped me know I was going uncertifiably sane. It was reading statements such as, "Violence is not the exclusive preserve of the exploiters. The exploited can use it, and what's more, should use it." And, "There is a violence that enslaves and a violence that liberates." And thinking, well, yes, okay, all right, it's awful, but I can understand it. At least it's consistent and certainly reasonable. And discovering that the first was a quote from Che Guevara and the second from Benito Mussolini. It was not knowing how to classify war casualties today, 80 to 90% civilians, or the world arms trade, 75% of which is directed at developing countries. It was not knowing where to fit the 145 million children in the world's official labor force, not counting, as always, rural work, farm work, housework, care of younger siblings, water hauling, fuel gathering, and not counting bonded labor, prostitution, domestic servitude, and hidden economy sweatshop labor. Economics? It was not knowing where to place 50 million refugees, with women and children the overwhelming majority. Normalcy? Or the tuberculosis, body lesions, malnutrition, and venereal disease rife among the world's 80 million street children, an estimated 30 million of which are in Brazil alone. Terror? I was never able to make it fit, you see. It swelled, it brimmed and spilled over all the container edges, just as my eyes did when I read it, as my brain did when I heard it, as my guts did when I saw and smelled and touched it. Even now, even understanding where I am at last, I can't get over it. Even right now, I can't put down these words anymore for a while because I can't see to write, because these simple-minded, emotional, unreasonable tears get in the way. even in here, even after all this time, even now. Yesterday they told me they would never make peace with their enemy. Today they told me negotiations were proceeding and the talks were constructive, frank, fruitful. They're always so puzzled. When I laugh at these reports, sometimes they strike out, not always at the face or the belly, sometimes with a blow to the brain or the soul. Enraged that I find them so funny. But you know how it is when you try to stifle laughter. It just gets worse. It gurgles and bubbles and rises until you're ready to explode with it, like in church or in a judge's chambers or in a business meeting or in any of those rituals they're performing out there, insisting that they're not in here. The more you try to smother laughter, the more it leaks out. I mean, you could choke from laughter, from trying not to laugh when you really have to. You can gulp back tears if necessary. You can certainly swallow words. You know, you're going to get you in trouble if you speak them. You can grind your teeth and not cry out in pain. But there is just no way to swallow laughter, real laughter, for any reasonable period of time. So they tell me these things, and I laugh. I laugh until my ribs ache. Like when they tell me that technology will solve human suffering, and I laugh until my lungs are desperate for gasps of air. It bewilders them. They punish me, well, yes, but then they leave me in peace for a while. So here's a tip to put back the pleasure in your traveling. Their thinking you're mad is a reliable form of safety, freedom almost, like being able to write you this message, for instance. Anyway, when I was back there, beginning to be skittishly cured by degrees, of their sanity, I mean, there I was, observing observations like this one. Quote, "The goal of terrorism is not to kill or to destroy property, but to break the spirit of the opposition." Huh. I would underline those last 6 words and think about it, and still resist it, although I was resisting it less and less all the time, which made me want to resist it more. I would think about how hard it was to perceive what was going on when you had no legitimate vantage point for perception. I would think this must be my failing. But I couldn't help noticing how other women had similar problems. Was it just a resistance to knowing, a disbelief, a denial, the lack of a vantage point? I would think about what to break the spirit of the opposition meant. Oh, I don't mean the obvious ways, like the firebombing of the only women's radio station in Italy, Radio Favelas, slums of Rio de Janeiro. Of the 25 women, they had a murder on average every week, but their death never makes the newspapers. Or the chaining of 6 young girls between the ages of 10 and 12 to their beds in a child brothel on the resort island of Phuket in Thailand, where their charred skeletons were found after a fire in 1984. Or how the propaganda of pornography promulgates the lie that fear is arousing, that terror is orgasmic, that women enjoy being afraid because being afraid is women's natural state, because nice, friendly guys are on the loose in the pub and the prep school, and every time another woman dies, the rest get jumpy, which is the point of the vantage, because if women are jumpy all the time, it must mean that being afraid is their natural state, which means they enjoy it, which means give them more of the same because fear is arousing and terror is orgasmic. No, I don't mean these obvious ways in which they try to break the spirit of the opposition. I mean the normal, everyday ways, the ones we call living. So I tried to make a category. I really did try. But by then I was beginning to have an impossible time with classification. There certainly was normalcy. There was Marine Lieutenant Colonel James Jones instructing his troops not to talk freely in bars. Men, if you ever wanted to lie to women, this is the time to do it. Or the observation of a wife-beater on probation. Violence isn't learned, it's something in your own mind that makes you overreact. and the response of another man in his therapy group. All of society, not just families within it, is violent. If you're nonviolent, you're nonviolent because everyone else is so violent. If you're violent, you're just fitting in. There certainly was economics here. There was a statement by Bai Waiba, a member of parliament in Papua New Guinea, where a 1986 survey disclosed that 67% of rural women and 56% of urban women are regularly beaten or, quote, wife bashed. In some parts of the island, the percentages run much higher. When the government tried to institute anti-battery laws, most members of Parliament were violently against the idea of Parliament interfering with traditional family life. Waiba said, "I paid for my wife, so she should not overrule my decisions because I am the head of the family." You see, certainly economics. I wasn't the only one having these categorization problems. Many women were. One of them was Jane Caputi, who in her book The Age of Sex Crime argued that sensationalized murders by such men as Jack the Ripper, the Son of Sam, and the Hillside Strangler were sexually political crimes that functioned as a form of patriarchal terrorism. No matter where I focused, the content overflowed, whatever purported to contain it. How could the local custom in Papua New Guinea have spread so far as to be accountable for the battering in Leningrad of Natalia Malakovskaya by her celebrated Soviet dissident husband? Then I realized that Papua New Guineans must travel a lot because the identical local custom prevailed in Ireland. There, according to Paul Theroux in The Kingdom by the Sea, virtually all social duties had been assumed by women, leaving the men with few responsibilities except manliness, idleness, religion, and violence. Theroux found a cult of death in Ulster and Derry, both. But in 1979, Gina Correa had already written, "I came to see terrorism against women during my 10 weeks in Northern Ireland, a terrorism to keep them in their place. Domestic violence is more widespread, more frequent, and much less lamented than street violence." Well, I used to study such data until I had nightmares about it, even when wide awake. One does so want to be reasonable and respectful of local customs, but I would get terrible headaches trying to work out how come the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland both could be populated by settlers from Russia and Papua New Guinea. It seemed clear, however, that Irish-Russian New Guinean migration must explain why 52% of official reported child maltreatment in the United States targeted female children, which was distinct from the fact that over 40% of teenage pregnancies in the United States were caused by rape committed by father, brother, or uncle, even though the girls got blamed for being promiscuous. What I couldn't decide was whether all this fitted under reproduction or crime, under family or terror, under love or slavery. I felt very stupid. You will understand well enough by now why I can't help irreverent bursts of hilarity when they come to me telling me that when women dwell on these things, we fall into victimization thinking, assuring me that they care about human rights, that they esteem women, cherish children, and revere life. You will understand why when they speak of respect for their law, which they differentiate from the law of their enemy, a distinction I can't follow because my lack of perspective. Or they speak of the higher law of their gods. I keel over, holding my sides in stitches. When I still thought I was out there, I counted hundreds of cases of forced sterilization of women of color. I remember other cases where judges ordered cesarean sections despite the refusal of the pregnant woman because doctors claimed the fetuses were at risk. cases where women were brought to court for rejecting certain surgical procedures to prevent miscarriage, or for taking non-prescription drugs while pregnant, or even for taking a prescription drug that might discolor the teeth of the unborn. Oh, if only I knew that there was some way this could reach you out there. I still hear you singing sometimes, little snatches of melody with no words, or muttering unintelligible words with no music. Perhaps I do imagine you, after all. Yet you exist. Perhaps it is a lie that I write this to help you feel less alone. Perhaps I write for myself, but with the identical purpose. Sometimes I knock on our shared wall here in prison. Sometimes I think I hear an answering knock from your side. Were you ever to receive this, you might hate me. That's a possibility I have considered, I assure you. Nobody likes the bearer of bad tidings. Although the truth is that in this place, it's hard to see how things could get more gruesome, but that thought could be a dangerous invitation. At least it's hard to see why any tidings of human communication from a source other than them wouldn't be a relief of sorts. But I admit being afraid of frightening you, which would be funny in itself considering our situation. Or of boring you. I guess I wanted to prove myself or my arguments to you, and that is probably the final temptation, the one that remains even though I've quite given up wanting to prove anything to them. The day I realized that, I knew I had been struck sane. I was beyond reason and reasons. In their terms, you understand, the terms from which they had forfeited all vantage points for observing or judging. They could no longer tell sex from death, or love from loathing, money from flesh, crime from law, government from slavery. No wonder in their sanity of necrophilia they perceived two women embracing as perverse. It was too wholesome. And if one has become a necrophiliac, isn't it an act of love to make of the entire world a graveyard? So I made one last attempt at a category. But I had been driven wild. I might as well have labeled it everything. Category: the world. This was, as you might expect, a rather large classification. I haven't the time, even with all the time I have that they let me have, which is all I have, to list what went into this category. And I certainly haven't the writing materials, not to mention not knowing when I may be able to get hold of more, if ever. But you will get the point, if not the vantage, from these hints. 1 million species out of a total of 5 million. 20% of all species are at risk of extinction by the year 2000. It accelerated. The rate of plant and animal extinction is likely to reach several hundred per day in the next 10 to 30 years. It has increased. Acid rain is on the increase. Norway suffers under its drift from England, Canada under its drift from the United States. 25 billion tons of arable topsoil vanish from the world's cropland every year. Enough timberland to cover 40 Californias will disappear by the end of the 20th century. Well, it just went on and on in that fashion. You know all this, of course. You knew it back then when you were out there not knowing you were already in here, didn't you? But, and I say this as no criticism of you, because I did the same thing, didn't you ever notice how they dealt with it? With keeping us calm and convinced that we weren't in here, captives, refugees, hostages? Didn't you ever notice what they would do after disasters? They would set up more study panels, survey committees, investigatory commissions. They would ask questions like, how can human beings assimilate this kind of experience? How can people better accommodate themselves to stress? What are the psychological effects of living under conditions of violence and repression? Now, without meaning to sound flippant, I must tell you that one day I discovered a vantage point. I realized that the psychological effects were what they termed sanity. I realized further that rather than assimilate and accommodate myself to that state of mind, I would leave it. I can't claim it was any bravery on my part. No, it was simply having no other place to go, like the woman who is being battered or the woman who is trying to flee Lebanon. No place to go but into our vantage point and out of their minds. So I'm here. But I know I am here. I do not imagine me. And that's an odd sort of power, bounded in a nutshell, counting myself a queen of infinite space. How peculiar. Finding oneself is the opposition whose spirit is still unbroken. Because being here and knowing what I know, I have no choice but to invent some other way of existing. I can't do that all by myself, though, which is where you come into the picture. If I've imagined you, then that's already some other way of existing. If I haven't imagined you, you might even understand that you need me as much as I need you. I'm going to try to break out, you see, break free of this space. But I can't leave without you, knowing you're in there, just beginning to glimpse fully where you are. It's not anything nobly sacrificial. I'm as selfish as the next one. I would go if I could, even without you, but I can't. I need you to invent another way of existing, together, with me. Or if you like, forget me, do it yourself. Do it for yourself. But pass it on. I know it's simple-minded, but I think I love you. You there singing wordlessly to yourself in the neighboring cell. I have no way of knowing if these words will ever reach you, but I have to try. Tap 3 times if you receive this. When the book came out, I began to receive envelopes forwarded from the publisher. Sometimes they had return addresses, sometimes they had none. They sometimes had letters attached, sometimes none. But all of them simply had a piece of paper, and on it written 3 words: tap, tap, tap. And that's our show for this week. You can follow me on social media at The Robin Morgan. You can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net, and you can find my new novel, Parallax, and my just-out new book of poems, Harvesting Darkness, wherever books are sold. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer, as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer for this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us next time on Women's Media Center Live.